What's going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some of the current data points, break it down on what is really moving it, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So NIO is up 5.31%. Market just closed. So it closed at 447, 425 the low, 449 the high. So kind of interesting. And the fact that it did bounce off that 449 is very symbolic, associated to options. So I'm going to talk about that in a second, but no actual news from NIO itself. So no SEC filings, nothing like that. So the date of their earnings is still a big question mark. I do feel that that might be coming out this weekend on the actual date when that will be. But one thing that really did drive NIO higher and other Chinese stocks was this. So data coming from China. So you had exports 2.3, the actual forecast was 10, and imports was negative 8.4% versus a forecast of 3%. So this is phenomenal data. So the balance looks like 170.52 billion. Complete flip of what happened from the States. So this was announced yesterday. So their data was nowhere near as good as China's. So that's a fairly positive thing. And in my opinion, that's what really drove NIO and many other stocks higher. And when it comes down to NIO, even comparing it to other Chinese EVs, it's been lagging. So I think the biggest attributing factor to that is just shorts and just the overall investor sentiment. So hopefully things will improve and they'll hit their March numbers, and even when it comes down to their earnings, which again is unannounced, that'll be kick-ass and hopefully really push it and break it above some key levels. But because of, I feel like, that good data that did come out from China right here, Trump did state that tariffs could go up as time goes by. Didn't allude to which countries, so whether it be China, Canada, Mexico, or whoever else, but I think that this was oriented towards China just to really hit them hard. And also one thing that kind of came out, which was rather funny, because China actually, what was it, 2 months ago, blamed America of the exact same thing, while under Biden, that a lot of American EVs were pretty much getting handheld because of a lot of their tax credits. So now Trump's doing pretty much inverse. So Trump advisor Navarro attacks China auto industry, cites massive subsidies. So kind of crazy how they're going back and forth. I don't really see that many for the Chinese auto industry, but what do I know? Maybe there's some that I'm not aware of. I know based on some stimulus, which has just been rumors at this stage, that was kind of alluding to some money going towards the auto industry. But there's also a lot of other sectors that, I don't know, it's kind of comical if you ask me. But I found this kind of interesting. So this is a little bit one of those China's car exports from 2014 up until the present. So China definitely does have a advantage. So you see Japan, Germany, the States going down, and then China just breaking out. So yeah, even I cover a lot of other stocks such as Lucid. Lucid's already stated that there's a hell of a lot of just competition in China, and they obviously wouldn't really make it. So NIO's doing, I know a lot of people hate on NIO and some other Chinese EVs, but they're doing rather okay in my opinion. But when it comes down to today, shorts did increase 774,000 shares. 14.52% of the free float is being shorted. Works out to be 193.87 million shares overall are being shorted. Cost to borrow minimum is negative, so negative 0.2, meaning a broker out there is physically paying people to short NIO. So maybe it's correlated with all this kind of American attack on just Chinese EVs. Maybe this is as well included. So yeah, something to keep in mind. I know a lot of people have asked me on the short interest of other Chinese EVs, and NIO by far is the highest of them all. So I think that also is why NIO's been rather suppressed. But moving over to options. So the market just closed, like I said, a couple of minutes ago. So 4.02 million in calls, 2.25 in puts. 50% of all the options being done today were optimistic in nature and kind of a little bit higher volume. So yesterday was 4.9, day prior was 6.2. So today grand total was 6.5 million. But moving on from here, though, of the call options that were purchased, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 450, and then the bears are anticipating for it to be in the foreseeable future sub 4. So more of a breakdown. But with today being Friday, you did have 25,000 in open interest at that 450. So market makers and shorts had a financial interest in keeping it below 450. This is why I did bounce off that 449. So a little bit of manipulation. So I always find it funny whenever I bring up these points in the comments, you always have people saying, no, that's not manipulation. It's like, yeah, that I do feel 100% that is. And there's a lot of other stocks that have this same type of makeup, such as SoFi. So I cover that one as well, that often the cost to borrow minimum goes negative. At the same time, you have these types of weird scenarios where shorts just randomly increase just below these kind of key strike prices. So it's I see that as kind of manipulation, but what do I know? So at the 350 strike price, you have 7,000 in open interest, and then also 9,000 at that 4. So a lot of that is going to be most likely covered after hours, but there might be a little bit of a bump up come Monday as market makers cover these. So that might set a pretty good trajectory for next week, but it would have been nice to have 2.5 million shares, so that's at 25,000. And then as well, I'll go over some expectations for this upcoming week on my weekend video, so just kind of stay tuned for that. But these are all the transactions that did occur on the dark pool above $100,000, so quite a lot. So a couple big ones, 1.29 million. And as per usual, this is very popular because shorts like to use this as well as other large entities. With it closing at 447, it is trading between this pivot and this S1. So 418 will be a strong support. 460 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. No new analyst ratings. So the last one did come out right over here. So 14 days ago, 390 sell. Hopefully new ratings do come out post earnings. So I feel like their earnings is going to be next week for whatever reason, which most likely would prompt at least a good 6-7 different analyst ratings. But on the actual chart itself, so it did close above that ALMA, so that is sitting at 433. Next strong kind of point to really watch for is that $4.35. That is that 50-day moving average, and historically that's a very key pivot for NIO, bigger picture. So hopefully that is able to be broken come Monday, and then that way NIO can kind of continue its trajectory higher. And you have that 100 and 200 day moving averages at 465 and 472. So those will be some kind of targets for NIO at least going into next week. So yeah, I think overall pretty good, successful end of the week for NIO. So over the last week, it did close relatively flat. So it's still better than the norm for NIO. And so yeah, let me know your general thoughts on NIO. Aside from what I brought up, there isn't really anything coming out from NIO itself. No speculative topics, no rumors, nothing like that. So I think just people are holding their breath for their upcoming earnings. So let me know your general thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. Give yourself a shout out if you bought the dip recently, or did you sell? Lock in profits with options. What have you been doing with NIO? One final thing, pop over to my Patreon and get buy signals on stocks, options, and crypto. Many of them have been absolutely on point and bangers. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.